Good evening and a very warm welcome to your evening news bulletin with Television Tonga. Making headlines, a letter from the Chinese government state a deferral of Tonga's repayment of its multi-million pa'anga loan from China. There is hope for the public to understand and have a fair idea of the Family Protection Parliament Act 2013, and a consultation was held to draft the first national disability policy. These and other stories later on in this bulletin, together with the latest from around the region, sports, international scene and the latest weather. I'm Fatai Whaingaa with the detail. A letter from the Chinese government has confirmed its approval to postpone the repayment of the 118 million pa'anga loan of the Tongan government from China. The decision for the postponement of the loan repayment comes after Tonga request to defer this by a decade. However, China has revealed that they are giving a 5-year maximum before any actions will begin with the repayment of the loan. However, the 5-year period should be completed by this Saturday. The purpose of this multi-million pa'anga loan was for funding of the reconstruction of businesses in central Nuku'alofa, which were destroyed in the 2006-16-11 riots. The Honourable Prime Minister Lord Duranno in the Parliament's deliberations says that according to the context of the loan agreement contract with China, Tonga was supposed to start repaying its debt to China this Saturday. Lord Duranno told the House that it was clear from the agreement that the repayment of the loan will not come from people's tax, but the businesses. The Honourable Prime Minister also told the House that it is important to announce to the public that reconstruction of the buildings and businesses are not free of charge. He also thanked the Chinese government for approving the request to defer the repayment of the loan. The decision for the postponement of the loan repayment comes after Tonga requested to defer this by a decade. However, China has revealed that they are giving a 5-year maximum before any actions will begin with the repayment of the loan. Meanwhile, the Honourable Prime Minister told the House that if they will repay at this rate, then the interest will be 11 million pa'anga, and if at principal rate, it will be 13 million pa'anga. Lord Duranno also called on members of the House to remain calm as work is underway towards the matter. This is after Tongatapu People's #1 representative to Parliament, Akilisi Pohiva inquiry, the St. George's Palace project in Bangaisi aiming at providing a centre for government portfolios in Aside. Mr. Pohiva also questioned why was this project not submitted to be discussed in the House, but the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister Sami Vaipolo says this project was not submitted to the House because it has been planned years ago, where the government are not responsible for its funding. Air Samoa's Chief Executive Chris Langton says he does not believe there are significant safety concerns surrounding a controversial plane flying in the kingdom. Mr. Langton revealed this during an interview with Radio New Zealand International. We'll join Kalalaine Tongilava with that story.
Air Samoa's Chief Executive Chris Langton, who's also a veteran pilot, has been asked to help test a plane, the China-made MH60 currently operated by the domestic air carrier Rio Tonga Airline. Mr. Langton says recently an oversight group that has been established called SPAS had made a formal approach through the Tongan government with the purpose of being able to carry out a series of flight tests and checks sufficient. According to the Samoan pilot, this is to allow both New Zealand and Tonga to compare notes and on that basis have the aircraft accepted into service without any restrictions. At present, they are waiting for the finalization of the paperwork before traveling to China to start the validation process. In Mr. Langton's interview on Radio New Zealand, he stated that he does not believe that the concerns regarding the MH60 is a significant air safety issue, because the aircraft has proved itself in a number of very difficult locations like Nepal and Central Africa. Mr. Langton believes there are areas where flight operations are fairly testy, so it doesn't necessarily mean that much in terms of some of the incidents that have been quoted in the press. He says at present they are waiting for the finalization before traveling to China. The aircraft has been flying between Nuku'alofa and Vava'u since August, and China is adamant it is strictly verified by its own aviation standards. Meanwhile, last week, the Chinese embassy in Nuku'alofa has reaffirmed the aircraft's safety standard as it meets all the requirements from the International Civil Aviation Organization, or ICAO. Reporting for Television Tonga News, I'm Galalaine Tonglava.
Meanwhile, the questions regarding the safety standards of the MH60 aircraft is affecting the tourism sector in Tonga. This was confirmed from a tour operator in Vava'u during an interview with Radio Australia, together with two other related officials regarding the safety concerns of the MH60. The questions comes after the travel advisory warning from the New Zealand Minister of Foreign Affairs, Murray McCully, to New Zealand tourists about the safety of the MH60. Again, Galulaina Tonglava has that report.
The questions over MH60 safety have led to New Zealand withholding its million Ba'anga tourism funds for Tonga's tourism sector. In the interview on Radio Australia, a local tourist businessman, JB Alov, says that his business has been affected with downfall on booking with 50%. Despite this, some of his guests have told him that the MH60 aircraft flights were satisfactory. However, Radio Australia also received information from another passenger on the MH60 aircraft, which he says that the flight was daunting and water was leaking from top of the aircraft's cabin. In the meantime, Rio Tonga's commercial manager, Telefaletau, says there was no such incidents reported of any leaking liquids on board the aircraft. Also, during the interview, a New Zealand aviation commentator, Peter Clark, says what he's worried about is operating of an aircraft with no registered certificate that neither New Zealand nor Australia recognise. The MH60 aircraft was constructed in an aviation company in China, with its cost estimated at more than 30 million Ba'anga.
There's hope for the public to understand and have a fair idea of the Family Protection Parliament Act 2013. This was the purpose of a 3-day training for legal practitioners to clarify all sections and context of this Parliament Act. Linda Fillier was there and filed this report.
Taking part on the training are representatives from the Justice Ministry and other government-related ministries. Speaking to Radio and Television Tonga News this morning, a New Zealand Justice Peter Portia from New Zealand's Law Commission says part of their duty is to develop training program for judges and magistrates.
In this case, we've just had the Family Protection Bill passed, and so we'll be talking a lot about the bill, what it means for Tonga, how it will make things better for victims of family violence. We're also going to be talking about adoption, we'll be talking about juvenile offenders, and we'll be talking about family law. So it's quite a bit to cover.
Meanwhile, he also stresses the status of family violence in the Pacific countries.
Well, sadly, family violence across the Pacific, and I include New Zealand in that, is very bad. There's a lot of domestic violence that goes on in houses. So what we're trying to do is to talk about it and see how we can help victims of violence and help see what we can do to give better protection. Now, this bill that Parliament has just passed is fantastic, and it is one of the best family violence bills I have ever seen.
The Family Protection Parliament Act 2013 was recently passed in Parliament. Attending the program were diplomatic representatives to Tonga from overseas countries, among others. Meanwhile, the program was organized by the Pacific Judicial Development Program and was funded by New Zealand Aid.
Related stakeholders are willing to improve service delivery for disabled people. That is the purpose of a 1-day consultation to start drafting a national disability policy. The consultation was held at the Basilica's conference room today. Silanto was there and filed this report.
In the opening remarks of the National Consultation Workshop, the Director of Health, Dr. Siali Akaola, says disability is not just people who are disabled, and it's much more than health and medical issues. This also backs up the call for key stakeholders to work closely together to form a national disability policy.
The focal point for disability for the Government of Tonga has been with the Ministry of Health for just 2 years. However, there's a growing realization that disability is more than a health or a medical issue, which is why many different government ministries have been invited to today's consultation. We also need to work in partnership with civil society to provide services for people with disabilities. One of the challenges is that there has been lack of overall coordination between the different stakeholders, the civil society and service providers. This is why we need a national policy to provide a framework or mechanism with a long-term view that includes all different stakeholders. A national policy is also a sign of commitment by government.
Meanwhile, in the vote of thanks from the Chief Executive Officer of Pacific Disability Forum from Fiji, Setareki Matanawai, says the national disability policy would assist people with disability to achieve their maximum potential and goals in life.
We then hopefully come up with a draft. This is useful to help us, help the government, help people with disabilities benefit from a coordinated mechanism of service delivery, of protection of rights, of planning, of budgeting, allocation of budgets to the disability programs in the Kingdom of Tonga.
Mr. Matanawai also stressed that in the future, the work will demand key related organizations to share information and work very closely together for the benefit of the disabled people. Also taking part in today's national consultation is Kiteao Kulihaapai, who told Television Tonga News that he is hopeful for the national disability policy to help him and other disabled people. This is the way forward that would help us. I believe that we can still be educated, amongst other many things we are capable of doing. This encourages us to be better at what we do. The consultation workshop on national disability policy is a follow-up of a recent workshop on the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, SRPD. The one-day national consultation was held at the Basilica Conference Room. Also taking part were the CEOs of the Ministry of Education and Training and Ministry of Internal Affairs, Emily Bovalu and Lopeti Sentuli, amongst other participants. For Television Tonga News, I'm Sinilatu.
The project manager of the Malimali Dental Project, Dr. Sauri Kawamura, has presented assistance to the Director of Health, Dr. Celia Kauola. The assistance, a new vehicle, is to improve the Malimali team transportation as they work directly with the grassroots. Linda Filiai with the details.
The Malimali medical team have been conducting dental assistance to all the primary schools in the kingdom. The leader of the team, Dr. Sayuri Kawamura, presented a donation to the Director of Health, Dr. Siale Akauola. The donation is a vehicle to be used by the Malimali team for its dental operation. Upon receiving the donation, the Director of Health, Dr. Akauola, says the vehicle will not only assist the dental department, but also help with the transportation operation of other departments in the ministry. This is one of the services that we are not able to provide, and with this donation, it will help our transportation services. This donation will not only benefit for the dental department, but for the rest of the department as well. Meanwhile, Dr. Sayuri Kawamura told Television Tonga News that they wish to continue the relationship with the Ministry of Health by providing assistance in any way they can.
We donate many vehicles for the Malimali team to use to primary schools and also ambulance for the hospital to use. We are going back today after spending 6 weeks in Tonga. We came to assess our Malimali project. We are happy for the work the dental department and the Malimali team are doing. We will come back on February next year to continue on the part 2 of our Malimali project.
Meanwhile, the former manager of Japan International Cooperation Agency told Radio and Television Tonga News that JICA is supporting this initiative.
We are now starting with a new project from this August to be 3 years for the, through to the Pacific Medical Team and supporting by JICA. And the team will be started for the oral health care. It's not only for the primary school. They will expand to the community and also kindergarten. And their target is not only for the oral health now, they expand to the NCD issues also. So I wish they will be utilized to this donated car to visiting for the kindergarten and community for improve the healthcare of the people of Tonga. This is one of the wish for the JICA. So we are very happy to time this occasion.
The aim of the Malimali Dental program is to improve Tongan people's lifestyle by different approaches in both oral health and lifestyle modification to prevent non-communicable diseases, NCTs, life-related and oral diseases.
And that's the local news. Specifics up next.